Where to begin? Well, for starters, Vegito's perhaps the most misleading character in the game. At first glance, he looks like a monster, being able to mix and match normals, fast travel and attacks with a real nice crouch and medium, possessing an Android 16-like air grab, and the longest range anti-air crouch and special. Then you quickly find out that linking all those normals doesn't do much in terms of damage, it's hard to open people up with this single hop and low medium, the air grab isn't even close to 16s, and crouch and special is only used in combos. I'm not saying he's bad, it's just that initial expectations are wrong. Vegito doesn't have to worry about anything when sparking, however he can be effective outside of sparking with a decent amount of meter and assist. So contrary to popular belief, he's a terrible point character. If your team isn't meter dependent, Vegito can work as your second, if not, he's best as an anchor. It seems like for every good thing you can say about his normals, there's the bad side to it. His stand and light is great due to the range and number of hits, however on whiff you're wide open. His crouch and light allows you to go back to the start of your combo chain, but it's slow and doesn't hit low. His key attacks are good, but his air heavies are limited. All in all, I think it rounds out to above average, but you can get in a lot of trouble if used carelessly. Vegito is not for novice players. Surgical strikes with stand and special can be effective, but as a whole Vegito doesn't have much of a full screen presence, and if your opponent wants to get in on you, they're gonna get in with little resistance. He has a lot of forward momentum with his attacks, but it's hard to gain any advantage from them on whiff. Vegito's more of a calm, calculated character in the matchup, so despite what it seems, I'd say he's average in the mobility department. On the surface, it doesn't look like Vegito has a lot to work with, and outside of Spark, he's too needy. But during Spark, you can build enough meter to end with a level 3 easily and then subject him to one of the best 50-50s in the game. In the right hands, Vegito's a better version of Bardock, but he has a much higher learning curve. Quarter circle back and attack is your air grab, which you'll be using this a lot. Whether you're on the ground or in the air, the properties are the same. The light version comes out fast and travels upward more so than the other versions, which means the forward movement is the shortest. It doesn't count as a smash and it doesn't give you a slide knockdown. The medium version has a longer startup, but it travels more at a 45-degree angle. It counts as a smash and it gives you a slide and knockdown with some added damage. The heavy version, like usual, contains the best qualities of both, having a fast startup and giving you a slide and knockdown. The travel angle is less than 45 degrees, so it's easier to combo into. It also does a lot more damage than the medium, coming in at 17% when the medium is 11. All versions scale your combo by 3 if it's the initial hit, and it's extremely difficult to combo afterwards unless you're using a vanishing attack or a super. The primary use is in combos, more specifically at the end of your combo after a vanishing attack to get some corner pressure. Quarter circle forward and attack will send Vegito flying forward with some kicks. Not the most flattering description, but that's what he does. If performed on the ground, you're not considered airborne, just in case your opponent tries to crouch and heavy you. The light version comes out fast and, well, it comes out fast. The medium is a little slower and goes slightly further, but it does more damage with some extra kicks. It's also a smash and wall bounces if you're by the corner, allowing for a meterless extension. And the heavy one expands on the medium with significantly increased range, a faster startup, more damage, and you travel forward after the final hit to help with wall bounce extensions. You'll be using this mainly in combos and block strings, however you can use it to close the distance very quickly in the neutral. Quarter circle forward and special is your general purpose ki blast. And since it's a ki blast, your opponent can cancel their guard with a reflect or super dash and fly right through it. It scales your combo by 2 if it's the combo starter, and it's pretty generous with the hit confirmation considering it's a ki blast. You'd use this sparingly in a long range neutral to get people to calm down. Quarter circle back and special is your counter. If successful, you're going to go into your auto combo grab, which retains the smash property, but you can't naturally follow up with the super dash, and since it's a special move, you can't cancel into another special either. It doesn't launch your opponent as high, but it does knock them back further, so assist conversions outside of the corner will vary. It scales by 4, which is 1 more than the auto combo version, so don't expect big damage. Assist can trigger the counter, but supers and grabs plow right through it. It's not active on the first frame, so you're still going to need reflect, plus you can miss, but usually you'll go unpunished thanks to your forward movement. Its main usage is when you think your opponent's going to jump in on you. It's not advised against block strings where your opponent uses a natural gap, but if it's a slightly delayed medium or whatever, this will do the trick since it's highly unlikely your opponent will be frame perfect. So basically, if your opponent has to time an attack, this is your best friend. Here's an overview of what attacks should be on your mind in a general matchup. In long-range neutral, if your opponent is actively trying to tag you with their Ki Blast, super jump up and toss out your Ki Blast. Yes, I know it's difficult to hit confirm into a vanishing attack, but that's not the goal. You just want to get your opponent to stop throwing Ki Blast at you. And considering that most characters can't direct projectiles upwards, they're gonna have to stop and play a little defense. As soon as your opponent starts playing defense, use a max range stand-in forward special and buffer the Genie Kicks. If forward special impacts, the Genie Kicks come flying out, and if your opponent ate it, hopefully you're close enough to the corner to convert. Which if you use the heavy Genie Kicks, you can combo from mid-stage. If your opponent happened to block forward special, well, now they're in a block string. And if you whiffed forward special, well, nothing happens at best. The Genie Kicks don't come out and you keep playing the neutral. And at worst, you might have a Ki Blast headed your way, and if that's the case, cancel into your Vanishing attack, which eating a counter Vanishing attack is much better than getting comboed. Just outside of mid-range you have your generic options, which is better than most other characters because Vegito's crouch in medium is long range and has a little hop at the beginning, kinda resembling a jump and low air dash. On impact just go into your block string, and if they happen to get hit, the easiest conversion is crouching heavy when you realize they got hit. And when you're up close, Stand-in Light's your best friend. It's obviously quick and has great forward movement with multiple hits allowing you to easily confirm into whatever you want. Just make sure not to get too carefree with it. If you whiff, you'll be forced to use a Vanishing attack to avoid punishment. Even though Vegito's best as an anchor, you might want to get him in the fight early to allow other characters to regenerate blue health, or maybe you just have another anchor you want to run solo with. Whatever the reason, it's good to know how assist can help you in a fight. You probably notice that there's no low juggle extension, and that's because his jumping heavy doesn't knock your opponent downward normally. You'll have to use his full light auto combo to get that, and you'll need an assist to keep him low. Then the extension itself is pretty difficult and not everyone can do it. And it's all for what? A very minor damage increase in some meter at the expense of both your assists, which means you can't apply a proper block string afterwards, and you lose the corner? Not worth it. Corner Dragon Rush extensions don't even work really because of the height, and there's only two attacks that send the opponent downward. Is Air Grab, but you need that to end combos or else you're gonna lose the corner, and the second attack is your Dragon Rush, but you can't use two Dragon Rushes in the same combo. But you guys already know that Vegito doesn't get a whole lot from using assist in standard combos. Let's start with the main reason to use assist, the self-sustaining block string. This column shows you to what degree an assist can cover the end of your loop before you repeat. A green rated means that there's no gaps when using your assist and allows you to go back into the loop with no reflect points. The other column is your extension after a counter. It's not the most important conversion in the world, but it's nice to get more damage and build meter when you can, especially seeing as it's not difficult to do. Alright, that's all. If you don't care to see the details of this, skip to the time listed at the bottom of the screen. The block string point structure is a normal affair. 1 point if it's usable, but there's a problem with it, 2 points if there's only one reflect spot and your opponent can't get away from it, and 3 points if it's gapless. We'll go into the actual details of the block string later in the video. Here's the timing chart of the assist. Keep looking. Alright, that's enough. Trunks has 2 gaps and the timing window isn't very forgiving, but he can keep your opponent in place and protect you. Kid Gohan is gapless, however it only works in the corner. Piccolo only works in the corner, has a gap, and counts as a small Ki Blast so you can be interrupted. Because of all this, I can't give him any points. but if your opponent's too scared to take a chance, it'll do the job. Super Saiyan Vegeta's gapless, but since it's considered a small ki blast, you can be interrupted or reflected at any point, so it's actually full of gaps. Vegeta's timing is a little after the first impact of the medium genie kicks. There are 2 gaps, but if timed correctly, your opponent can't get away. Beerus has a gap that your opponent can reflect out of, but it'll punish jumps. Your opponent can also backdash out with some pinpoint timing. They have to jump afterwards or else Crouch and Light will catch them. Vegeta Blue is in fact gapless. He needs to be called out when standing special impacts. You gotta be quick with the genie kicks afterwards to maintain the block stun. Gohan is gapless but only works in the corner, and the timing is a frame or so before the freeze ends on the second genie kick. The timing isn't easy, so you're gonna have to practice it. Majin Buu has 2 reflect gaps, but your opponent will get hit if they try to jump or backdash out of it. Krillin is gapless but only works in the corner. You'll have to remove the crouch and light after the assist to make it work though. Cell is gapless, but since it takes him a while to jump out, you're gonna have to slightly delay the heavy as opposed to the typical second medium. Now for the other column, your counter. You won't center your whole game around it, but it's nice to use and punish your opponent for being predictable. Since the damage will be heavily scaled, it's generally not recommended to use meter if it's not gonna kill or set up for a corner level 3. 1 point if you can combo with the jump and attack, and 2 points if you can combo with a grounded attack, most likely a stand-in light. Here's the timing chart. You'll notice that a lot of people have similar timing thanks to the hit stun after the counter. You'll usually have to dash up to him and use a stand-in light or super jump. If it differs, I'll let you know. Oh, and Bardock is really strict, that's why he's in red. Strict Bardock. A stand-in light is possible with Bardock, but it's really strict, so we lost the point. With Super Saiyan Goku and Goku Black, follow up with the Super Dash. Zamasu is a bit harder, here's a timing for it. It's a little before the freeze frame, but not too close. Vegeta can get a stand-in light, but it's strict, so it's best just to use a Super Dash instead. When using Beerus, you gotta be really quick with that stand-in light afterwards. Yamcha can get a crouch in medium if you quickly dash for a few frames first. With 16, make sure to dash before your super jump. It's not an easy extension. If you want an easier extension with Cell, just use a super dash. As many of you already know, Vegito has a problem opening up opponents because he doesn't have a low crouch and light or any other means beyond the generic mid-range options. So stop worrying about it and just force your block string on them. Yeah, it's true you can block the whole thing low, but who cares? It's not your job to mix them up, it's your opponent's job to get out of it. And if they don't make any attempt, oh well, I guess we'll just be like this forever, slowly causing block damage as meter builds for both. Sounds like an awful movie, but whatever. I know this sounds weird because everyone has this impulse to destroy your opponent as quickly as possible, but if they have the nerve to wait you out, you should have the nerve to keep doing your block string. Keep in mind that non-sparking Vegito needs a lot of meter to do really dirty stuff, so build all the meter you can, and when your opponent finally tries to get out, you'll have enough meter to use the more effective setups. This block string requires you to slightly delay the second medium with most assists. Cell specifically needs more time, so it's the heavy with him. The delay should be small enough to the point where if your opponent tries to jump out, they'll get hit. If your opponent is trying to reflect your second slightly delayed medium, just delay your heavy instead. Your opponent will have to stand to reflect, thus they'll get hit low then smashed with standing heavy for a combo. Alternatively, you can just stop the block string after the first medium, then low air dash past them with the heavy to punish the reflect. Or if you want to punish a reflect after the second medium, well, just do a second crouch and medium instead of the heavy for a punish. The second reflect point is after the standing special because it's a small ki blast, but don't worry about getting super dash, it's not going to end well for your opponent. If you think your opponent's going to try to reflect after standing special, just use a light or a medium for the punish. From this point on, any additional gaps is based on your assist, and the assists I'm using for the example are completely gapless. So this block string has 2 reflect spots and some manual timing, leaving more room for error. Not the greatest block string in the game, but it's not the worst either. And something I'd like to address right now. I'm not the greatest person when it comes to precision and execution. I'd say I'm about average. So this took me about 30 minutes of practicing to get the timing down pretty well for both assists. You'll have to practice it for a while, but it's not impossible. And for what it's worth, I'm still amazed that the only block string we see in competitive play is from adult Gohan. I'm going to show you the only reason you need to argue Vegito's worth is more than just a battery on point. You're probably thinking, alright, so you hit the opponent post level 3 with the second hit of the auto combo. What's the big deal? Let's watch that again. And now you're probably thinking that it looked like the grab from the auto combo. And if that's the case, you'd be correct. Post level 3 in the corner, this is a true 50-50, where if they guess wrong, they die. And if they guess right, they block your assist and you still have the advantage. Let's take a look side by side at the 50-50. Yeah, your opponent's just gonna have to flip a coin on this one. Without factoring in any assist, the kick beats attacks and jumps, but loses to reflect. The grab beats blocking and reflects, but loses to attacks and jumps. And factor an assist in, you can keep the advantage on a wrong guess. Now the timing for this will take some practice, however it's 100% possible to get it down. The key is not to mash and properly time each attack. Push light as soon as the opponent hits the ground after the super, then if you want to go for the grab, slightly buffer the second hit, then time the light again for the grab. If you want to go for the kick instead, push light as soon as the opponent touches the ground like normal, but then time the second hit to be a frame or two late. Don't buffer it. If you buffer the second hit, it'll come out immediately and you'll likely whiff it. I know this seems very difficult, but with some practice in a few days you'll be able to get it down pretty reliably. The reason why you don't want to mash this out is because you don't know what you're gonna get. Plus, if it comes out frame 1 after the super, you'll completely whiff the whole thing. So it's a benefit that you're not frame perfect. This is definitely a 2 combo kill. Just remember that if you go for the grab, you gotta be creative with your assist combo afterwards. Personally, I like to use an assist to get that low super dash impact so I can bounce him off the wall and protect myself in case my opponent guessed right. But not all assists can do that, so this will boil down to your specific team. Then there's the matter of extending it even further like I did with the Dragon Rush. When you're in Spark, you don't have to worry about meter because all his optimal combos build plenty of it, which also includes the post level 3 combo. Trust me, this 50-50 is the reason to play Vegito and makes him a serious threat. Do not use this man on point because you won't have access to this if you do. Okay, this setup's pretty dirty, but what about those pesky opponents who aren't shy about using a level 3 on Wake Up? Well, you can opt to punish it by canceling into a vanishing attack when the second attack impacts with the kick setup, or rather a frame or 2 after the impact. You'll be in the early frames of your vanishing attack when the level 3 activates, so you're still considered in front of your opponent. With good timing, you'll get a full combo punish with your vanishing attack passing right through him. With bad timing, you just kick him away. And with sparking, good or bad, you're going to get a full combo punish since you can cancel the vanishing attack. And of course, if they didn't go for the level 3 and got hit by the kick, if you're in sparking, they're so dead, seeing as you can easily get an 88% combo afterwards. But you'll never see it because they'll die way before the end. Outside of sparking, maybe not. It depends on how much damage the first combo did and how creative your second combo is, since the vanishing attack will heavily scale your damage. Make sure to use an assist to cover your vanishing attack outside of sparking, or else you could be punished on block. Vegito's biggest weakness is that it's difficult to open up your opponent, which you shouldn't feel obligated to force a mix-up if it's not going to be effective, because that'll get you punished at worst, or allow your opponent to get out of your block string easily at best. So, if Vegito's your second character, well, the story ends here. But if he's your team's last resort, you have a few ways to apply pressure and even mix up your opponent when sparking beyond the generic options. The main string is stand in light, medium, crouch in light, jump cancel in the special, then forward air dash with light before you land. When jump canceling in the special, you don't want to be too low to the ground or else it won't let you dash. It'll take some practice to get down consistently, but it's not too difficult. Your opponent will get hit if they try to jump out or anti-air you after the crouch in light, and the air dash and light completely jails so crouch and heavies or flex can't stop you. Then you land and start the loop all over again with stand in light, which also jails. You'll be using this most of the time since it's the safest and easiest to hit confirm off of. Now for the flowchart. The purpose of this is to randomize which paths you take, seeing as they all have individual strengths and weaknesses, to make it as difficult as possible for your opponent to stay safe. So let's look at your first choices. Light, medium, crouch and light gives you the most frame advantage. However, there's a gap before the crouch and light impacts, so if your opponent's gutsy, they can reflect or jump out. Which brings us to light, medium, crouch and medium, which visually looks similar and has no gap and hits low. Thus, it'll punish people who try to reflect or jump out. But your options aren't as solid as the previous. Generally speaking, until your opponent gives you a reason to use the crouch and medium starter, take advantage of the crouch and light starter. As mentioned earlier, the jump and special is your safest bet from the light, medium, crouch and light starter. It'll hit people who try to attack and jump, but it can be reflected. Which brings us to the second option, a low air dash into a medium. It'll perfectly punish people who try to reflect because they're going to get a forward special instead since you're going to be behind them by the time they come out of their block stun. But it loses to attacks, so it's a good mix up with the jump special that beats attacks but loses to reflex. Now let's look at the light, medium, crouch and medium follow-ups. Going into stand-in special, then jump canceling into special is interesting because stand-in special allows your opponent to cancel their block with a reflect. Therefore, it will cause their reflect to come out too early and jump in special will impact during their recovery frames. The downside is that your opponent can jump or backdash out of it. Hell, if they start blocking high too early, they can walk out of it. And on top of that, if you're a few frames late, you can be interrupted. So only use this if your opponent's reflect happy. So, to recap, if done after crouch and light, jump and special, air dash light beats attacks but loses to reflect. If the same follow-up is done after crouch and medium special, it'll beat reflect and attacks if your timing's tight, but your opponent can escape easily. The other follow-up is to simply use a crouch and light after your crouch and medium, and that'll open up the door to the previous options. Yeah, so these are your primary strings, with light, medium, crouch and light being the best starter, and jump and special, air dash, light being the best ender. But, considering how fast the flow of the match is, you don't always need something to be airtight to be effective. I mean, how many times do you see competitive players get hit by Dragon Rushes? Dragon Rushes can be jumped, backdash, interrupted, escaped even if successfully impact, and they even have a big green pulse when activated to warn your opponent. So why does it work? Well, when your opponent isn't expecting it, the likeliness of your opponent reacting correctly goes down the toilet. So, let's look at some crazy stuff no one's gonna expect. You'll notice that the two new starters are pretty much the same, except it ends with the crouch and heavy. You already know that there's a gap between stand and medium and crouch and light, but there's no gap between crouch and light and crouch and heavy. However, there's a tiny gap between crouch and medium and crouch and heavy. So if they try to jump or attack, they're gonna get hit. Both of these starters have gaps, they're just in different places. Now let's take a look at the next follow-up options. At the top you have your air ki blast, which will keep your opponent in place, but it can be interrupted with the super dash. If you're concerned with the super dash, you can opt for a dash and light after the crouch and heavy for the cross-up, which happens to punish a super dash. Just make sure to hit him deep with that light, or else you're not going to be able to combo in time in the event of a successful cross-up. Okay, well after your air ki blast, you have enough advantage to the point where they can't interrupt or avoid your fallen light, which can be cancelled in the special for a familiar ender, kind of. There's a tiny reflect point between light and special, and there's no natural way to punish this aside from manually breaking your flow. So your best bet here is to come down with the light, then land and reset them, probably with the Dragon Rush. Keep in mind, even though you have the frame advantage on your opponent, they can plow through your fallen light with the crouch and heavy. So the counterplay to that is to vanish as soon as your ki blast impacts and use special cancelled into another ki blast to keep them in place. And the final option is to slightly delay your special after vanishing, then dashing forward for the cross-up with medium. By slightly delaying the special, it'll punish reflex and allow you to cancel into your air dash for the cross-up, which completely jails. If you don't delay the special, you're going to be too low and won't be able to air dash, so just delay it a little bit. So if you don't delay special after your vanish, it'll beat attacks but can be reflected. And if you slightly delay the special, you'll get caught by super dashes, however you'll punish reflex. This is why Vegito needs Spark when running solo. He can actually mix up your opponent and have self-sustain and level 3 combos and dirty corner mix-ups that lead to death. Feel free to experiment around. There's other follow-ups you can use, but these are just the most practical ones I found. But be advised that none of this is easy to do. Vegito's the most difficult character that I've done a guide for so far. While I wouldn't consider him top 3, he's definitely not low tier. Thanks for checking out the video. A big thank you to all the patrons for supporting the channel. If you're interested in helping out, the Patreon link is in the video's